Assalamu alaikum, I'm Tahmid Abdullah Rat and I'm going to discuss about one of the earliest form of mass communication, which is the newspaper. We know that books were the first form of mass communication. After that came newspaper. At this day and age, newspaper are one of the most influential form of mass communication. They say that newspaper is the first rough draft of history. This is in fact true. Even today, we see that historical books are given their reference from well-renowned newspaper from the past. We also see the influence of newspaper when they bring out the news of corruption and other negative aspect of life. We see administrative body taking immediate action against those corruption. So we know that newspaper has a great impact on our lives and society, but how that come to be? For that, we need to know the history of newspaper. We'll also discuss about other aspects of newspaper. The history of newspaper goes to ancient Roman period during the rule of Julius Caesar. The Acta Diurna or the daily acts were published. These were written on stones or metal tablets, often on marble or bronze. The purpose of Acta Diurna was to disseminate government information to the public, to promote accountability and legitimacy of the ruling elite, to keep the Roman citizens engaged with the empire's political and social activities. After the Roman era, during the Middle Age, the officials of Tang dynasty distributed written news sheets called Bao, mainly for government purpose. In 15th century, the invention of printing press by Johannes Gutenberg made the mass production of written material possible. After that, a German bookseller named Johannes Carolus published a newspaper which was the first regularly published newspaper. In 1960, Boston printer Benjamin Harris published the first American newspaper named Public Occurrence, both foreign and domestics. One of the items in the paper alleged an affair between the King of France and his son's wife. After that, the newspaper was shut down, and at that time, there was no such thing as free press or anything like that. 14 years later, John Campbell, the local postmaster, published a newspaper, but that had only 300 subscribers, so that didn't see much success. After that, a few newspapers saw some success, but the revolution was far beyond the beginning of the revolution. Newspaper grew in numbers during American Revolution. This period marked the beginning of the political press, which openly supported a particular party, faction, or cause. In 1976, when Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, the text of the documents was published in the Pennsylvania Evening Post on July 6. The politicization of newspaper did not end with America's victory in the Revolutionary War. Instead, partisan leanings of the press was transferred into another area, the debate over the power of federal government. Newspaper grew during the 19th century. By 1800, most large cities had at least one daily newspaper. By 1820, there was 24 daily, 66 semi or tri-weeklies. These newspapers were read by upper socio-economic classes. During this period of time, several newspapers were formed in response to needs and interest of minority groups. Freedom's Journal, the more the of more than 40 newspapers published before 1860, was founded in late 1820s by Reverend Samuel Cornish and John Rushburn, written and edited by blacks. In 1828, another minority group, the Cherokee Nation, published Cherokee Phoenix, written in both English and Cherokee. During this period, people of many ideologies and many groups published their own newspapers, so this period can be called as the age of political press. Another historical turnout of the newspaper industry was the penny press. New York Sun was published in 1833 by a 22-year-old man named Benjamin Day. Day's idea was to sell his daily newspaper for only a penny. As we know, until this time, newspaper was usually read by the higher economic class. But when uh, the man named Day started publishing newspaper for just a penny. Even the lower economic class people were able to buy it regularly. So that came a big thing, and many other people followed his path. One of them was James Gordon Bennett. Uh, like Benjamin Dave published New York Sun, Bennett launched the New York Herald in 1835. It had much more rapid success than New York Sun. The Herald introduced financial page and sports page in the paper. Another important pioneer was Horace Greeley. His New York Tribune appeared in 1845. It ranked third behind the Herald and the Sun's circulation. Greeley used his editorial page for crusade and causes. He opposed capital punishment and gambling and favored trade union and westward expansion of America. In the history of press industry, penny press was a revolutionary thing. Newspaper were material for only the higher economic class, but after the beginning of penny press, the newspaper industry grew a lot and became much more influential in our day-to-day lives. Newspaper in 20th century. Between 19th and 1920, the circulation of newspaper went up, but the number of daily newspaper declined. The number of cities with competing newspaper decreased by 60%. The cost of new technology proved too much for many marginal newspaper. Also, advertisement industry looked for those paper with a lot higher circulation. But a few newspaper chain grew a lot during this period of time. During 1930s, the circulation of newspaper increased, but the income declined by 20%. Although worsening economic conditions were the reason for this decline, more significant was emerging of radio. From 1935 to 1940, advertising in newspaper declined a lot. After World War II, economy forced the newspaper industry to move even further in the direction of contraction and consolidation. All those newspaper circulation rose from approximately 48 million in 1945 to about 62 million in 1970. Uh, the number of Delhi stayed about the same. By 1945, 60 change control about 42% of the daily newspaper circulation. By 1970, approximately 157 changes accounted for 60% of total circulation. After internet became available at this digital age, newspaper experimented with ways to stay afloat. At this time, we see the newspaper circulation are decreasing day by day. For that, we see online-based news portals are becoming more and more popular among public. Most of the newspaper industry and now following one of general mass. Online papers has certain advantage than traditional newspaper. Uh, Printed newspaper are unlimited by news hole. The amount of news that can be printed in one edition. Online papers has no such limitations. Online papers can be updated continuously. There is no edition deadlines. Online papers are interactive. Readers can give feedback in many ways. Online papers can provide photos and videos and audio clips to accompany news, stories, and advertisement. Some even offer social networking. Online paper can feature user generated contents. So because of that, we see that nowadays online portals are becoming more and more popular than like regular newspaper. uh, so one of the main reasons of that is people are not reading newspaper as much because they have a lot of other media to get news from. But it is necessary for us to read newspaper. It contains a lot of idea that can enrich a person For that, I think it is important for people to read newspaper, not more than that already do, since it have a lot of benefits. We can grow a lot by reading the editorial page of newspaper, and also it gives us